This is intriguing. What's up, guys? That guy with a no, without a pencil. In fact, to have it and keep it on me at all times. One fun fact: we have a lot to talk about, and I'm intrigued. Notably, I already recorded this review and live reaction, except I was still heavily sick when recording both of those, and they sound awful. So I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to do is do a review of Chapter 23, Ritual of Harmony, and this chapter. Especially after seeing the reception to it, let's say, is interesting to me. Mainly because I see much more on the positive side of it, even if my immediate gut reaction was seemingly, at least if in retrospect, it felt a bit more negative. But we have a lot to talk about, so let's not waste more time. Let's hop right into the chapter itself. But except not we're gonna hop into the chapter itself. We're gonna hop into this beautiful cover page, Yuji and Mahito. Now that we have these two, and the fact that these two actually don't make too many appearances in this chapter, actually, no, they do, but Mahito doesn't. I will say this about both of these characters' integration into the current narrative. I think it is necessary, and I'm happy with how they were utilized. Mainly because they showed up, they showed out, and they played their role. Unfortunately, if they were going to do more, they had to be integrated into the narrative a lot sooner. And for how little time the narrative had to integrate these two characters, I think what they've done, at least so far, there is something that's set up at the end of the chapter that means Yuji may do more. But still, for how they've been handled so far in Modulo, I am perfectly fine with it. I've seen a lot of people be very disappointed in Mahito, especially, and like, even me, I made a joke here too about how Mahito, oh, he fumbled my stock investment. But, jokes aside, I do think both were utilized as they should. Mahito, especially being entirely unchanged, I think kind of needs to work for the way his character was left off, and Yuji being much stronger, but ultimately not directly engaging with the major plot until he was like literally forced to by a curse technique that sort of acts as a mod tool for all of reality. I also think that actually works a whole lot for both of these two characters. And this is just a beautiful color cover page too. I love this page though. I've seen has led to a lot of people believing Yuji has white hair. Which he may. I don't know. I feel like it's just a stylization thing. But if he does have white hair, showing that like his hair has grayed or whited out, but his physical form hasn't aged, that actually would be really interesting. And would also further parallel him to Mahito, who has always had a white grayish hair. And just the contrast here is really nice. And Yuji Osaka Sensei is a monster in terms of artistic skill. Like you don't. I'm not gonna keep glazing. Well, I am gonna keep glazing. I also do like how Mahito's falling apart here. Like, notably, you can see the stitches holding him together are, like, failing here, because he's that much weaker than Yuji Tadori. And look how Mahito's looking up while Yuji Tadori's looking down, showing how one has stayed the same and fallen below, while one has risen up and now looks down. Very good stuff. Very beautiful. And also, the black and white dichotomy between the two. Overall, a beautiful color cover page. What actually happened to the chapter itself? Psych! I just want to quickly discuss Osuki and Friends 2. If I had one critique about Modulo, but just is inherent to the nature of the narrative due to, you know, the state of the narrative, I wish these characters had more. Specifically, I think Osuki works as a focal point for the warrior side of the Rumelians, but I actually do like a lot of the Rumelians' like designs and wish they got more to do. But obviously, it's not their narrative either. They're kind of, I'm not gonna say they're here to fill space, but they're here to fill space. So it is nice to see Osuki and Friends get to experience a little bit of Earth culture. We see them first engage with that drank, if you know what I'm talking about, and obviously, he is a little bit too far, a little bit too gone, and he's instantly sobered up by Dabura talking to him, which is very funny, right? Obviously, Dabura doesn't necessarily mean to be the most intimidating or crazy guy, but he is still literally in many cases an actual monster. So I do like that he shows up and then calms him down from that drink, which is hilarious. But with it being the case, actually happening in the chapter itself, we are continuing in an interesting place. As Yuji says, even if we eliminate cursed energy from the Japanese, cursed spirits will probably still be born. Huh? Then what have we been talking about this whole time? In the end, it's nearly impossible to completely eliminate cursed energy from people. So it's not that he absorbed the information in the notebook, but more like he can just access it. Which is interesting. I do like how Yuichi's analytical mind is still racing and studying how Harmony and Chaos works, especially considering, like, I wasn't kidding when I was comparing Harmony and Chaos to the Sacred Palace. It is a lot vaguer. Or, well, to be fair, where they are right now, I'd say it's like the Sacred Palace and Magi. But the nature of Harmony and Chaos is a lot vaguer and more... it is very esoteric, right? And I think that's a big complaint that's been going around for Modulo. It feels like Harmony and Chaos kind of does everything, and I am more fine with that, with the interpretation that Harmony and Chaos is sort of like, kind of like an evolved version of what the Six Sides of the Limitless were. Things that were bound to and guided destiny, like Tengen's abilities and their immortality, the Limitless and the Six Sides of their constant reincarnation, Kenjaku being bound by fate, kind of in the same way that Toji Fushiguro was a way to break away from fate, a divine prank, if you will. Then Harmony and Chaos is essentially meant to, literally be the world itself through a character fixing itself. And I think the fact that Maru isn't perfect in his understanding and ability to wield the technique, he's almost like he's being wielded by the technique rather than himself wielding the technique, I also think works. And it's clear that Yuji understands that by how he still needs to explain things to Maru, and the data that Maru has absorbed being imperfect. It doesn't do everything, it just does a lot. And I think it does a lot because it's the world itself attempting to do something. Which, in JJK, while there's never been really a hardline confirmation of some concrete, higher, greater, singular power, because JJK is heavily Buddhist, especially with the way Yuji is written, it does make sense that there is some sort of, like, grander idea, that they're all dancing in the palm of something greater's hands, and obviously, that would lead to a character like Maru existing, just as a character like Gojo existed, heck, the Gojo clan in general, just like a character like Kenjaku existed, just like a character like Tengen existed, heck, even Ryomen Sukuna ultimately existed to act as the balance patch for the Heian era. And to see that continue into the modern day only makes sense. But with it being the case, Yuji says, first, let's talk about people outside of Japan who are said to have no cursed energy. Like I said before, on Earth, cursed energy is something unique to the Japanese, or those with Japanese ancestry, aside from a few rare exceptions. People overseas do emit cursed energy, but it's incredibly faint compared to the Japanese. And this is a big thing, right? It's why technically you always need to do verse equalization whenever you do JJK, because people always tend to forget because of how heavily, the Japanese only have cursed energy, domains would work on anyone in the verse because everyone in the verse has cursed energy. It's kind of like, it's the difference between something like magic. Well, to be fair, in similar sense, it's debatable whether or not everyone has that. But regardless, there are some universes where only certain people have access to the power system. And why is it Magi, for example. But then again, everyone has Magoi in Magi, so it doesn't even work there. But essentially, some universes with a power system, everyone in the universe has a power system, but then there are some characters in the universe who don't have the power system. For the longest time in Naruto, a lot of people didn't have chakra. But then Kaguya came and then spread out, and then chakra became a thing and then became part of the human biology. Same case for here. Everyone in the JJK universe has cursed energy. So if you were to remove a character like Satoru Gojo and put him into another universe, and you don't equalize energies, most people would just be immune to domain expansions because they don't have cursed energy. But, of course, in JJK, everyone has cursed energy. And with it being the case, we see that Yuji admits, so, cursed spirits are still born outside of Japan. There aren't many, but once in a while, a strong one pops up. And that is true. We know this from the fact of Gojo and even Yuki wandering overseas. Obviously, we have the actual sorcerers, which is Miguel's entire clan and family in Africa, but also, remember, Gojo is notorious for needing to go overseas in the original narrative to take care of powerful curses that pop up, since, the strongest sorcerers typically do exist in Japan, but also there were sorcerers and curses that would appear overseas. And I do like how Maru's third eye looks very annoyed with this fact, while Maru himself looks interested. I like that these two, even if it hasn't really been fully reconciled, I'm not sure, I haven't read chapter 24 yet, so I'm not sure about that, but I do like the idea that this is either a different side of Maru's personality or just a separate layer to it. But with it being the case, we see that Maru actually asks, how can they be strong if the cursed energy is so faint then? And Yuji explains, because the cursed energy is so weak overseas, there are only a few places it could gather and actually take shape without fading away. So the weak cursed spirits like you see in Japan wouldn't even grow enough to manifest there. And it's been about 70 years since now the knowledge of cursed spirits was made public. Ever since then, the cursed energy from outside the cursed energy from people outside Japan has been flowing into Tokyo. In other words, even if we eliminated cursed energy from the Japanese, cursed spirits originating overseas would keep occurring over there and in Tokyo, just like they have so far. So, that is the interesting byproduct, right? And I do think this led to them making a decision that I'm like, I mean, to be fair, Gege apparently still did confirm. I've heard this at least. That Gege has still apparently confirmed that Jujutsu sequels will be a thing. But now we're before. Well, I'll get to my opinion on the choice that Yuji and Maru seem to come to by the end of the chapter when we get to it. But with it being the case, Yuji explains. I do love how ominous Yuji is able to still look when he's hidden by incomplete darkness. But let's see. But if this is the pathway for every soul on Earth, that means souls from overseas pass here through here too. Anyway, that's why we have to completely eliminate cursed energy from humanity, which includes those overseas. But we can't, right? And Maru goes on to say, please continue. I'll consult my curse technique. And that's once again my idea of like, he has the curse technique, but he's very much, Manga's never getting animated, dog. It's been over for a long time. It's been over for like 10 years. But essentially, there is a character in Manga, one of the main characters, who essentially acts as a conduit to a whole bunch of information and power, but they aren't actually, like, able to wield all that information and power that they are a conduit or direct link to. Maru is that. The fact that he has to consult his curse technique as if it were a separate entity rather than just a piece of himself, that once again feeds into the idea that he truly is more so a vessel for something greater rather than an actualization of the ability. Where I'd say Sukuna has absolute mastery over Shrine, right? Even if he could keep evolving it. Maru will probably never have full mastery over Harmony and Chaos. It's just, he'll be able to use what he's able to use in that moment. And then 9 out of 10 times, the technique will just use him as it is right now. But Yuji goes on to say, and I've been talking about eliminating cursed energy this whole time. It was another condition that was even possible too. Isn't that what you meant to when you talked about elimination? And that is true, right? Ultimately, with Maru and Yuji kind of not just meeting each other for the first time, but meeting these conditions for the first time, they are kind of freestyling. And I do like that they acknowledge that, right? It's just so you considering how rapid, go, the narrative has been. It makes absolute sense that these two are kind of in a position where they're coming to a discussion on the possibility of making something a reality. But they don't actually know. Obviously, especially with Maru not having complete control over everything, and Yuji just not really having much context, if at all, for Maru as an individual, not to talk of his abilities, they are simply talking on hypotheticals and possibilities, so they don't know if they're actually real. And we see Yuji explain, even if we altered the composition of people's souls to eliminate cursed energy, Japanese and Samurians the Japanese and Samurians could still emit very faint levels of cursed energy, just like the non-Japanese, right? That means cursed spirits would continue being born from the Japanese through the same process as those overseas. The numbers would dip a lot, but still. And that is also true. The idea that, because, like, it's like, technically, if they were to do it on the world scale, they'd probably eliminate the cursed spirits from overseas, but then they just reduce the Japanese and the Samurians to the level of what's overseas. And it would still end up producing powerful curses after a while. The numbers would drop, but still, it would be an issue. And especially the issue from that is that while we do know there are freak exceptions of extremely powerful beings from overseas, aka Miguel, it still would be harder to deal with any powerful cursed spirits that then appear later on. Obviously, Yuji will be around, but as we'll find out, even he doesn't think he'll be around forever. He's like, I got like a couple more centuries in me. So, heaven forbid, 500 years down the line, and a cursed spirit shows up that's super strong and unstoppable, and people with this much cursed energy is all that's left to deal with it. But let's say, you're probably right. This time I'm using my curse technique to bring Samurians and Japanese into harmony. So I can't do anything that would cause physical harm to anyone. And that's very interesting though. But I guess the reason it works, the reason Harmony would even allow him to mess with their cursed energy production, is because technically we have to remember cursed energy is a negative thing, right? Like it's called cursed energy, but I think because of how enamored we are by the power system as a whole, we're like, oh man, it's cool. I'd love to have cursed energy. And obviously in our world, man, cursed energy levels will be high everywhere. We'd have a bunch of units running around. But that aside, in terms of what the thing actually is, liberating people from cursed energy is literally liberating them from negativity. So technically, while he is harming many potential future sorcerers by, taking away their ability to be future potential sorcerers, he is at the same time preventing harm in a weird roundabout way by making sure that they don't ever have to deal with cursed energy, which is why his technique is likely allowing him to do this. Though it is interesting that he can't use. But no, not interesting. This does imply, though, that with the chaos side of his technique, he hypothetically could do something like this forcefully. Like, he could possibly viciously lobotomize somebody and in order to eradicate their curse technique or curse energy if he wanted to, using the chaos side of his technique, but since he's currently using harmony. And we see Yuji goes, yeah, I bet. If curse energy isn't there to keep our bodies running, there's a good chance it could cause damage. And that's true. Once again, with how deeply integrated curse energy is into this universe, it is kind of like the Naruto example, right? Where at first, before Kaguya arrived, I don't think humans had, like, I need to reread and rebrush about my Naruto lore, but I'm pretty sure before Kaguya, chakra was not a thing, at least not a universal thing. It existed, like the stage creatures still existed, so they still had stage chakra and stuff like that, but humans weren't innately intertwined with chakra. But years upon years upon years passing, generations upon generations going by, and then chakra became such a fundamental part of humanity in the Naruto-verse that if someone were to run out of chakra, they then die. Where before they evolved into being so intermingled with chakra, that, like, it wouldn't have even mattered, it would have never happened. Same thing for cursed energy. It is so deeply intertwined into them that now if you were to spontaneously rip it out of somebody, then it would instantly give them. Which is why they're focusing on altering the future and not necessarily the present. As presumably ripping cursed energy out of a character like Dabura, who is fundamentally reinforced and lives with cursed energy, would, like, instantly annihilate him. Yuji, in fact, was lucky when he got his cursed energy confiscated by Higuruma, if only for the fact that he hadn't used cursed energy that often. And presumably his body's just extra more durable in the first place. But, with it being the case, we see that Yuji explains, aside from exceptions like Maki, but a heavily restriction and innately offered something in return for a physical boost. You can't just get rid of it, cursed energy. That's just our fates as human beings. And that's, once again, the cool idea of how Maki, Toji will always appear, dog. He will always appear. But Maki and Toji are very interesting, and that's why I always refer to Toji in particular. Maki, not so much. As much as I glaze Maki, I will rarely admit this. Maki, not so much because she wasn't natural in terms of getting a zero curse energy boost because of the nature of being a twin. But very specifically, I always refer to Toji as a Son Wukong or a divine prank, or as the narrative only calls him, someone to break fate because he was unbound by curse energy by his very birth. He wasn't able to escape the cycle of curses and negativity and hatred that came from it just because of where he was born into. But Toji still was an exception of exceptions that most people wouldn't be able to reach. Because since Toji was by birth, and ultimately Maki gained her strength through a binding vow undertaken willingly by her sister, and also death. But we see Maru go, wait, in a world without sorcerers, won't the risk of even a few cursed spirits being born with high latent abilities be too high? And Yuji says, leave that to me. As long as I have the time I've been given, I can deal with it before the next generation. It'll be a lot better than the current power balance between cursed spirits and Jujutsu sorcerers. Number of cursed spirits born every year can fit on one hand. I'm sure the reconstruction of Tokyo will make progress too. And this is interesting, right? Because we know before, Yuji was specifically disconnected, right? As much as he was willing to show up and facilitate a battle, he wasn't, like, actually doing the fighting for Jujutsu Society. He had left that to them. It seems to be implied that no one knew where to find him. He wasn't even helping out with the Great Purification Ritual. He knew about it enough to be like, oh, it's not happening this year, that's why everything's running amok. But he wasn't actually doing it. But in this case, as sort of a payment for making such a large fundamental change, he's now willing to step in and actively become a cog in the system again. Where before he may have still been a cog, but, like, placed to the side, doing his own thing. Now he's willing to push himself back into the system, since they are fundamentally changing the machine he'd be a cog in. But we see that Maru goes on to say, yeah, but in that case, the Earthlings and Smurians will keep being drawn into conflict over cursed spirits. And that is true. Until we see Yuji say, so then bring harmony to the cursed spirits too. Fix the thing that's causing the Remelians to confuse cursed spirits with Galleons. And, like, once again, server admin tools to the extreme, but I think it's fine, if only for the fact that Maru himself doesn't understand it fully, and even Yuji is more so literally playing like Legos in terms of building together his own understanding of Maru's abilities, his own understanding of the whole Galleon situation, and the situation with, like, fundamentally breaking the system of cursed energy in a way. As Yuji says, only those who need harmony are summoned here, right? What's the difference between cursed spirits and Galleons? Why do Remelians feel they're the same? I do like how it is the massive sleeping beast with the gargantuan third eye, the most ancient Kalyan that is used as an example. Meanwhile, this seems to be a random cursed spirit. But we see that Yuji asks, and considering the Kalyans are clearly sentient, or at least this Kalyan, oh, I presume multiple other Kalyans are clearly sentient and communicable, like we know some curses are. I'm shocked that it doesn't get like a more prominent say. Like, especially since Maru is representative of the Sumerians, Yuji's representative of humanity, you would think this Kalyan would like have a little bit more autonomy in what's happening, especially considering what goes on to happen with it, if I'm not mistaken. But no, it's just reduced to a doll here. Once again, showing the levels above that Maru and Yuji technically are. They are in the mod room playing with the admin tools. But we see that Yuji says, shouldn't this one be telling you the answer to that? And we see Yuji say, cursed spirits are evil. Since they're born from cursed energy, that's unavoidable. But something that resembles cursed spirits isn't necessarily evil. And that's true. A long, long time ago, there was an immortal Jujutsu sorcerer named Tengen. Tengen was over 500 years old. That's such a weird... I like that. That made me balk in the live reaction, made me balk again in the review I did. And that's making me balk again here. Why 500? Like, Yuji knows they're over 1,000 years old. Yuji should know that they're from, like, that either the Heian era or pre that. Interesting that 500 is the number here. Because, like, they're way older than 500. But, regardless, Tengen was over 500 years old. And although their existence was very close to a cursed spirit, they weren't a bad person at all. Though, once again, more context than that. Tengen was made closer to a cursed spirit for maybe, like, not even 1% of their existence. They were a sorcerer, right? Like, notably, Tengen's body only evolved after Riko Amanai failed to assimilate with them. Before that, they were just a human with the immortality technique. They weren't actually evolving at all. They were just a guy with an ability. Or a cow with an ability. But we're gonna remove that context. If you think about that, cool. But if you don't, it doesn't really matter. Because, of course, what the point you just trying to make here. And, of course, we see you just say, and my big bro was part human and part cursed spirit. Heck, Yuji is now too, but see Yuji called Choso big, bro. Don't tickle my toes like that, Yuji. Don't tickle my toes like that, bro. Don't make me. Don't do this, my boy. Don't do this. Don't do that. But regardless, we butted heads a lot at first, but then we understood each other. Maybe the reason Kalyans attack everyone beside Remelians stems from the same kind of evil as cursed spirits, which is interesting, right? And, well, to be fair, I won't play up into it, because we do get an answer this very chapter. But it is interesting that Yuji himself acknowledges himself as something separate from Choso. And I get why he does, because Choso was born the way he is, meanwhile Yuji evolved into what he is. But Yuji is very Kalyan-esque now. He is literally Choso. He has the exact same biology as the DPWs. So it's interesting that he separates himself. As he says, he really, if he was being completely transparent here with Maru, he should have said, my big bro and I were well, I guess it would change like that phrasing of the sentence, but like, my big bro, just like me, was part human and part cursed spirit. That'd be something that would like technically be accurate to what is right now. But with that being the case, we see that Maru holding the doll allows him to, through harmony, reach the ancient Kalyan that named him, and he realizes our souls are the same color. Among the multicolored souls, only Kalyans, cursed spirits, and Remelians share the same colors. Cursed spirits are vessels made from the leakage of cursed energy. The problem is that souls come to reside in those vessels. Souls are the same colors as those Kalyans and Remelians. That's why we mistake cursed spirits and Kalyans for being the same. And why Kalyans don't attack Remelians. This is interesting, because it implies that, like, all Kalyans and Remelians have, like, passive soul perception? Which isn't, like, the most rare thing cross-verse. Like, I don't know. For some reason, it's more... Like, JJK makes a big exception of being able to see souls. But in other universes, it is just very common. Like, almost everyone can see souls. It's not like, a fancy thing that's limited to certain characters. But JJK, it is pretty fancy. But the fact that they have soul colors and they can seemingly subconsciously recognize those is interesting. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to go anywhere. Well, at least not yet. Other than the fact that they will proceed to change this. And then things may or may not backfire because of that. But we see... that Yuji understands and goes, oh, it's not the reason they attack, but a reason they don't attack. Cursed spirits don't have physical forms, yet they function as a vessel for souls. Did that contradiction create a common trait with Kalyan, spanning planets? Do you think something can be done about it? This is also very interesting. It reminds me, I talk about all these different references, all these different series here. And We talk about a series that, oh, it's been 7 years. It's been 7 years since Kingdom Hearts 3. It's been 6 years since Melody of Memory. Oh, I'm losing. I'm losing. Oh, it's almost 6 years since Melody of Memory. Melody of Memory came out later. But still, regardless, Kingdom Hearts. The idea that nobodies, which we also know are hollow vessels at first, will literally regenerate hearts is also very interesting, because cursed spirits are empty husks, but they will generate souls. Meanwhile, Kallions are still weird because we don't know how they're born. And I don't think we're going to ever learn that. Because, like, cursed spirits, as they are born from leakage of cursed energy, that's one thing. But Kallions do seem to be bioorganic. They do have physical forms. But, like, obviously, we're not going to see a Kallion lay pipe or give birth in this month. But it also does seem interesting that it's a case of, like, is it convergent? I think it's convergent. Yeah, it's convergent evolution, essentially, where Kallions and cursed spirits evolve similarly across different planets. Because we know that on Samodia, there were no cursed spirits, but there were Kallions. And just as on Earth, there are no Kallions, there are cursed spirits. But, with it being the case, we see that Maru, when in question if something can be done about it, goes, I can't overwrite the color of their souls, but there are other ways. And Yuji goes, that double odd. By what logic would it work on souls that aren't even born yet? And Maru says, it wouldn't directly affect the souls that will be born in the future. But if we remake this place where the souls of all... Yeah, it's literally like... And I don't know, maybe I need a deep reference. I need to look into that now, just because it's giving me such strong vibes of it. I don't know if Gege was like directly inspired by Peak, aka Magi, with this, or if Magi was inspired by something that is a general context of like essentially. I'm not sure if this is a direct reference to Magi in the Sacred Palace, and or if Magi was referencing something that JJK Modulo is also now referencing in like a roundabout way, kind of like. Ironically enough, kind of like a convergent evolution thing where it's two things drawing from the same source, but like they aren't actually linked. Meanwhile, I was thinking like a chain of succession where it's Modulo being inspired by Magi, which is inspired by something else. But with it being the case, we see that Maru says, but if we remake this place where the souls of all on Earth pass through into a device that can split and reshape souls, very akin to how the Sacred Palace is retooled to recycle the Rook. I feel bad for anyone who doesn't read Manga and he's like, here we make all these Manga references, especially late game Manga references, like, I don't know what you talking about. But don't worry about it. Read Peak. But that aside, into a device that can split and reshape souls, we could scatter the color of souls, adjust their forms, and wipe out as much cursed energy as possible. Right here. And this is interesting, right? And this is where the door is technically left open. Note what Maru's phrasing is here. Wipe out as much cursed energy as possible. Not all of it. They have essentially conceded to the idea that they can't actually erase cursed energy. Despite me thinking that Modulo was going to be like a story about completely breaking the cycle of curses, it is clear that, very true to life in many ways, cursed energy is too fundamental, is too archetypal, I think is the proper word, they're not archetypical. It is too foundational to the nature of their world that they can only get rid of as much of it as possible, but they cannot entirely annihilate it. Without, like, fundamentally breaking the world itself. Which is an interesting commentary, because we know cursed energy still is a negative system. And, like, it's a whole allegory for negative systems and stuff like that. But, we see that Yuji goes, there's really no other way. If you use that method, I'm the Kallion aboard the Nalnox right now. And, essentially, the implication here is that if they do go on, because remember, this is only going to change the soul colors of children, future Rumelian children born later on, then Kallion will no longer recognize Rumelians as similar and will proceed to slaughter or attack Rumelians, which we know was an issue for Kallions, which was the issue that Rumelians ran into on their home planet of Samodia, why they had to run away in the first place, because Kallions were only chill with them, not anybody else. So, that is a big issue. But, speaking of big issues that need to be resolved, we cut over to Africa. Yes, Africa. As a woman who, I'm not sure if this is meant to be like where Miguel's family is meant to be, but we know Miguel's family specifically created the Black Robe, or at least sorcerers that of Africa did. And we see this woman, I assume is a woman, say, "Go ahead, take it." And we see Dabura, still battle damage, but Dabura holding the Black Robe in hand. And we see someone say, "I'm sorry, Dabura. I dishonored you by interrupting a duel between warriors. I did it back then too. I didn't understand anything at the time. Still, I know this is rude of me, but please." "You want me to go back to Samoria alone? It's the only way to save her, isn't it?" You can take us there now, even if it's just the two of us, can't you? I came to Earth. And I feel like there should have been an answer there, but regardless. I'm gonna read this whole little section out before I get into it. I came to Earth to honor my promise to Dabura. Modulo. It's alright now, isn't it? Huh? Yes. Good. Then my role here is finished. Did something change about you, Dabura? Not really. I just finally caught up to you. All the other warriors. Brother. Let's go back home, Spatial. We finally got a name! No face inside the chat. I hope it, like, please, I haven't read 24, but I like it. Please, Gege. I know you gave her that. Have her take the hood off. But then again, Yuji hasn't taken the hood off yet either. Well, at least we've seen his full face. But regardless, brother, let's go back home, Spatial. Thanks to the powers of the Black Rope, the curse the Discute chieftain put on you is broken. There's nothing. Oh wait, no. Thanks to the power of the Black Rope, the curse the Discute chieftain put on you is broken. There's nothing else binding you both. Thank you, Modulo. No. Dabura, I'm sure we'll see each other again someday. I understand it now. My curse technique. And then, okay, so we'll get to that. Mahoraga versus Dabura being interrupted and not finishing. Initially, I will readily admit I was doing front flips. Not back flips, front flips. And no, I only do front flips when I'm angry. AKA never, because I don't do front flips, so I'm never angry. But specifically, I was like, oh, that's whack, that's silly, that's goofy. But I will admit, that was the immediate gut reaction. Thinking about it for 0.2 seconds, especially as a person who was talking about it a lot, I think it kind of had to end this way. AKA not ending at all. Because I didn't think Gege had the nerve. And I don't think it would be like a right message to boom Yuka, right? Because that's the only thing that happens here, right? No matter what, if Mahoraga won, if Mahoraga lost, if the battle ended, then Yuka died. And I don't think Gege is trying to send that message with the narrative. So like that was never going to happen. And very specifically, I was talking consistently. Maybe not so much here in the main reviews, because it's hard to tell. Since I do like short snippet discussions over on the other platform, and then I do longer term discussions over here. But a big thing I was talking about was the idea of the third party, right? How someone was going to have to third party the battle with Yuka and Mahoraga and Dabura in order to make sure that Yuka lived, and bada bing bada boom, a third party occurred. I thought it was going to be Yuji, and ended up being Modulo. And also technically Yuji. So that honestly works for me. I'm perfectly fine with the battle ending. And also, you may be wondering, well, what does that mean about the thematics of the battle? Especially considering me, I was a big person pushing the idea that, oh, the battle between Dabura and Mahoraga, a representation of humanity and a representative of the Sumerians, and them clashing and evolving, consistently growing in conflict. What does them not having an end to their battle mean for the thematics and the narrative behind the fight, right? Like, does that technically erase it all? Does that negate it all? I don't think so. What I think it does is show that the two sides could have never come to an agreement through conflict, right? Ultimately, even if they aren't able to completely get rid of cursed energy, the whole point of Modulo is the idea that what the people need to come to an understanding is not conflict, is not battle, is not the old ways, but a new way of connection and linking in harmony amongst the chaos, rather than simply giving into battle. So as much as it would have been cool to see Dabura win, because I love Dabura, I think he's a fantastic character, one of my favorites in all of the trilogy now, but that technically wouldn't have been right, because it would have been might makes right, Dabura wins, Yuka dies. And if Mahoraga had won, it still wouldn't have been right. Sure, it would have been cool to see Mahoraga get a W 1v1 on its own and not, just pick up the sloppy seconds of Suguna, but regardless, it would not have worked in terms of the narrative, because that would have been like, might makes right, humanity wins again. So like, it had to end in a third party. So I'm glad it ended in a third party. And I am glad that both Mahoraga, well, to be fair, I would say mostly Dabura, because as much as I love Mahoraga as a character, Mahoraga isn't much of a character, and presumably I'm not gonna show you, it's not gonna have a reaction to Dabura disappearing. So that's the thing. In fact, with Dabura being sent, oh, that's a Samoria in an instant. But all the way back to Samoria in an instant. Presumably Mahoraga can immediately be dispelled, because whole third party thing. And naturally, Yuka appears later on in the chapter, so she's presumably fine. So Mahoraga is actually gone. But, all that being the case, I'm fine with the battle ending as it ended and not actually seeing it. Do I wish do I really wish from the bottom of my left big toe that we got to see a hint, a whiff, a taste of Dabura sure hit? Absolutely. Like it's all like this is even worse. It's I'd say it's even worse than like the triple domain clash and Hanami's domain expansion, where and even Jogo's. It's kind of literally Jogo's where we get so close, and even Yorozu's I'd say, where we get to see the domain expansion, we get to see the hand sign, we get to see the chant, we get to see it go all the way off, and we just don't see the sure hit. We know what Yorozu's sure hit is. It's True Spear, right? We don't know what Jogo's sure hit is. Maybe it's Maximum Meteor, maybe it's not. But regardless, there are so many times where domains get revealed and would have been really cool to see, and then it just gets cut off. It gets interrupted. So that's a bit unfortunate on that end. And like you could just have Mahoraga survive it. Sure, then you may be able to argue, well, then we wouldn't leave the fight in an area where both sides, where we don't know who could have won. And yeah, still would have liked to see it though. But that's very much the simple brain, I like big cool ability thing going on, rather than let's see how this fits thematically and narratively, and this end fits more thematically and narratively. Next, I'll admit, I am a bit iffy on Dabura being forced back to Samuria. I know that's the only way that Yuka technically could have lived, even though realistically Dabura could have just used the black rope on Mahoraga, and then that would have disrupted Mahoraga and probably canceled the technique out. So like that could have been done. The only reason I don't like it so much is because this whole thing was about Dabura understanding like the Rumelians and the warriors much more, and realizing what he was truly fighting for, and like starting to actually understand what Dura always wanted him to understand about the importance of battle and connection and humanity. So then just to like kick him out, it's unfortunate. And notably, Dabura is a different person than the Rumelians. So, you know, with this whole story being about harmony and connection and the linking of different peoples, you would think Dabura the Diskunte would be able to link and understand and connect to the Samarians or the Rumelians. But no, we're just going to put him back to Samaria. That's a little bit of mixed messaging there. I get the whole point, though. Presumably, with the black rope, he's going to go back and violate the Diskunte chieftain or whatever, right? Like, that's probably what's going to happen then. And then he will be able to connect to his own people. That's a big thing that Dora even wanted for him too, right? He's like, hey, you should probably like get to know your own dudes. It's like that's probably like the overarching message. But I do feel bad. I feel like like he was legit just beginning to understand and connect with the Rumelians on some sort of interpersonal level, and then he's just forced to leave. But like it's fine. I'll see. Once again, next chapter or chapter after that will probably handle that. I'll have to see how it's handled there. In terms of Dabura's return, or like, well, basically, like, not necessarily a forced exile. Like, it doesn't seem like he was made. Like, he essentially agrees to leave here. But I don't know. I feel like Dabura could have really benefited from, you know, sticking around and being with people who, you know, maybe actually genuinely respected him. But of course, the whole Black Girl plotline was kind of setting up for him to go back anyway. So it's fine. It's fine. It makes sense. I just think I liked the idea of Dabura like getting to be with people who. Admittedly, he still did fear him, but now he understood a bit better, so he could actually connect with him a bit more. But still, there's a possibility he's going to do that back with a Diskunte. Spatial finally getting a name. Cool. I hope we get to see her design. Like, please. All I can tell is that she has some hair. She has the same hair color as Dabura, but like, please. But regardless, there's that. And very specifically, I do like that Maru notes something changing about Dabura. Obviously, these two characters had barely any interaction as far as we can tell. In fact, some of their only interactions were negative on Maru's end. And, like, indifferent, if not confused, on Dabura's end. But still, I'm glad that these two have recognized and known each other well enough that they're able to part on good terms and really recognize the evolution that each other has undergone. That's beautiful character work. I really like that. Speaking of character work, we have Maru diving deep into harmony. And specifically targeting all these places with this like straight admin power. I ain't gonna lie to you, because he specifically goes and heals what appears to be crosses, like where the man got double tapped. He heals that. He specifically in Yuka's in darkness, mind you, and heals seemingly her malignant brain, and then or whatever that was, like some sort of tumor thing, and then Tsurugi on the ground, who already had a healing factor. I feel like Tsurugi would be fine, but still goes on to heal the slash that was under Tsurugi. And we see Maru glow and release all this positive energy. Presumably because he's converting all the cursed spirits into positive energy to massively release and redistribute it. But we see that Maru says, all right, that should do it. Thank you, Yuji Tadori. And I'm truly sorry. And that is, I first I didn't really understand what Maru was apologizing for, but I think it is the idea that he understands that he's leaving Yuji to a fate all his own again. And even if he doesn't fully know or really understand Yuji, presumably the nature of Yuji is still somewhat revealed to him through harmony and chaos. So he understands that he's essentially leaving Yuji to walk that lonely road all over again. And essentially to co-sign on and take care of what could go wrong, what couldn't go right, or really what could go wrong with the choice that they've made. And he feels bad about that. But he still does thank him. And we see that Yuji goes, "Are you sure that's it? There's still one big job left to do." And we see that Maru goes, "Yeah, but I think I need to do it by myself." And Yuji says, "Got it. And we'll both do our own thing. You've got it from here." And they both separate and move on. I wish these two had more time together. I will admit, like, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very utilitarian. It's very, we don't really know each other. We never will really know each other, but we're going to take care of this because we need to. That's it. It's very much, it's like working on a project at work. Like, from a different department. Like, y'all know y'all just here for business. Y'all really trying to connect and try to get this one thing over with and get it pushing. That's it. And it does feel a bit unfortunate. It feels a bit unfortunate because I feel like Yuji and Maru could have definitely had a much more elaborated on and interesting dynamic if the two had more time to interact at all. Will they ever? Probably not. Not enough time for that. But we see the many cursed spirits all over Japan begin to glow, or at least seemingly the fires of their souls begin to glow. And we see Maru literally standing above it all in this raining sea of lights. And we see him speak out. "Cursed spirits of Earth. It's a huge sin. That's right. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared to take on the burden of such a sin. I'm sorry. But at the very least, may you rest in peace." He's essentially liberating all the souls of the cursed spirits from their physical forms, or their cursed energy forms, not physical, but we see a person comes and grabs his hand as he does it. And we see Maru look seemingly surprised. Like, once again, this is all harmony and chaos, and this is why I speak to the idea that Maru doesn't, he's much more a vessel for what he's doing rather than actually being conscious of what he's doing. As someone grabs his hand, and he turns to see the brother he had nearly lost. "Let's do it. Together." And we see Yuka appear along while Maru is flanked by Tsurugi. As she goes, "Don't worry. We're all here with you." And they're all holding hands. And we see, notably, they all take this on rather solemnly, right? No one's really, like, smiling at what they do. Like, Maru has, like, a slight resigned smile. And to be fair, Yuka's straight cheesing it. It looks like she's straight cheesing. But we see, in this panel at least, everyone's flat-faced. And Maru goes on to begin to cry and go, "Thank you." Even his third eye looks a bit sad here, as he sniffles and begins to liberate the many souls of the cursed spirits. As both him and, because his cross saying, "By offering prayers to pacify all cursed spirits, I now conclude the ritual of harmony." And that's the end. So, let me get to the other big critique that seems, especially with these last few pages. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse behind entity. No one dies, or at least no one of importance dies. Everyone's safe, everyone's happy, this, that, and the third. I do need you to remember, for anyone who has an issue with this, in JJK, no one, like, well, to be fair, Gojo died. But none of the next generation died. I don't think that's, like, the kind of narrative that Gege wanted to push there or here, right? Like, while I give credit to Gege for making me care about these characters to worry about their fates, like, I don't think it would have made, like, thematic or narrative sense for Cross to die, for Yuka to die, for Tsurugi to die, and definitely not for Maru to die. I just wouldn't have, like, you may have been able to, I don't think so. I just don't think it would have made sense. So, I am fine with that. Then the whole idea of that, oh, this is Mickey Mouse Clubhouse because everyone's holding hands and doing this together. Yeah. It's a story about connection between different people. What better way to do some visual storytelling than have the characters who are focused on connection holding hands and connect? Shahor? The connection characters are connecting? Like as a person who always pushes for show don't tell. I think it'd be one thing if they all came together, held their hands, and said, "This really is our Jujutsu Kaisen modulo, and now we're gonna modulo mod the entire world." Like that'd be one thing, but no, it's just good visual storytelling. Seeing them come together as a unit, a bond between two Remelians, two Samurians, two aliens, and two humans, two of the guardians of the heavens and two of the guardians of the earth, the people who brought harmony, bringing harmony together. That's nice. That's beautiful. That fits into the narrative and shows that people of different backgrounds, different origins, different beliefs can come together to work together on things in order to make the world a genuinely better place. That's the narrative that Modulo is pushing since the beginning. So, I don't think any of the characters not dying or this sort of visual storytelling here at the end is bad or invalidates a whole bunch of the narrative, this, and the third. Then, the other major critique I've been seeing. Maru's Chris technique does too much. I kind of went over this last review. I've been hinting at it, this, and that, and the third throughout this review. I concur, but I understand Maru as not so much really having a curse technique, more so being the living embodiment of an idea, I'd say. Once again, I keep going back to Magi, and you know which character I'm talking about. I mentioned the idea that a certain character has a direct link to knowledge, but it's actually able to control all that knowledge or all that power and stuff like that they have a direct link to. Yeah, Maru is X character, who's very obviously, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. He is just that character. And just as that character was not necessarily, like, in full control of what they were doing, neither is Maru. He is truly he's a living mod check. So, him and Cross both. And I think that's fine, because a big part of JJK's narrative that's been established is that one way or another, the universe is always going to auto-mod itself to make progress, or to do something. Hold on. Oh, my word. Oh, my word. I'm sorry. But like I mentioned, from, realistically, Tengen / Kenjaku, to Sukuna, to Gojo. Heck, if we go with some of the in-betweener eras, Kashimo, Ryu, like Toji with the whole idea of the divine prank and him breaking free of fate and then making fate move forward. And Yuji himself through his existence through Kenjaku, and then now Maru in the modern day. There are certain characters who exist to perform certain roles, and Maru is he's the premier evolved version of that, to fundamentally change the system one more time. And that by doing that, he has complete and total access to the system. I don't mind that. I think it's an interesting way to tell a narrative, but I also think it's one of the most succinct ways you can tell a short run narrative. I would agree if this were a longer run story, if this were like original JJK length, then yeah, I'd want it fleshed out and explained. I didn't even mention Usami's throat getting healed, but I'd want it fleshed out and explained a bit more and more time taken, and not just give character mod controls to fix every problem in the universe. But considering the type of story JJK Modulo is telling, in the time it needs to tell it, and the fact that it's clear that Maru himself doesn't fully understand what he's doing, I'm perfectly fine with it. So overall, shock horror, Mr. Positive Man, saying the chapter is worthy. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know it is shorter than the other reviews because it's like I did like an hour plus review on this already. It feels weird repeating the points. So I didn't want to do too much to try to keep it unique. But regardless, hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, I will be reviewing chapter 24 as well. I was gonna do like a super review of 23 and 24. But then that'd be like 3 hours, and I could already picture my computer reaching through the screen that is the monitor and like absolutely strangling me. So you will be getting chapter 24 review soon enough, do not worry. But regardless, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave harmony in the chaos. I feel like I've done that one before. Let's not do harmony in the chaos. Let's leave harmony in the Itadori. Because why not? I feel like I can't have done that one before. Harmony in the Itadori. In the comment section down below. I want to thank you so much for watching. So remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that lethal notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I'm going to have a page down below. You support me for as low as $1. Get a month. Things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reactions to every other series I have to review, including all the other reactions to JJK Modulo, including the chapter reaction to chapter 24. And on top of that, you get your name listed and read aloud at the end of every single video if you're a $3 member or $3 patron or higher. On top of that, I do a link to my Twitch in the description down below, where that got the controller, where I stream every Friday, 8 p.m. EST. Feel free to roll through. We have a good time, we yap, we chat, and of course I do have my Ko-Fi down below if you want to drop 5 minutes or a short video or 20 minutes long video. But now I'm going to thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. Alright, lady, thank you to our sketch tier members: Eternal Flame, Redwolf 4765, Astro, Glacier XZ, Zera, J2MA, Bura Ura, Yuki Ally, Grim, Ollie, The Boy, Corey Watson, Damon Brown, Dino, Tim Thomas, Kaving, OrXN, Logan Guzman, Dead Meme, Keon Stewart, Donovan McIntosh, DNA, Edwin Ingbi Straw, Antavius Mitchell, Superflame Zero, Weary Exile, Window Life, Alex Kenny, Todd, The Practical One, Landon Clapwick, Heath Nelson, CAET, Jagoda, Plant Crone, Striker Man, Brendan Payne, Black Sage, Multi-Batman Superman, Zalims, Joe B, Sleepin' John, The Young Family, Pastel Pandora, Karina Hernandez, Mo City King DKG, Andrew Bonet, John Malcolm, Akalade Babatunde, ASD1234, Jesse Clapp, CCC, Ramondo Furin, Sky XT, Victor Jacobs, Axis XC, Osin Tibwit BDM, Kingly, at JDog2656, Union Eye, Marisol Boyd, Funny Dude, FNZ Shear, Magic, Sino King, and Sheesh King. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our line art tier patrons: A+A, Dread Zoen, Karina Hernandez, Kevin Encarnacion, Lil Koto, and Sean. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our ink tier member, Shrimpo the 4th Shrimp 06. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our digital art tier members, J Warrior and AZ Void. And I'd like to give a final thank you to our colored art tier patrons, Walking Minows, and Ernesto 430.